Welcome to the Not in the Job Description podcast. I'm Scott McLaughlin.
And I'm Chris Kiernan.
No matter what type of job you've had, there were situations that happened to you during work that you couldn't wait to tell your friends about.
We interview a variety of guests about some of their crazy stories from work, from entry-level food service industry jobs to doctors and attorneys. We will explore funny, gross, embarrassing, scary, and sometimes almost unbelievable stories that people have experienced while on the job.
Keep in mind that our guests or the companies they work for may be masked in order to protect the innocent, or maybe even the guilty. On today's show, we talked to JR about being in the construction business. Welcome, JR.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Oh, not too bad.
Thanks for joining us today. I'm looking forward to this show because I am the kind of person that cannot pound a nail into a piece of wood, and I can't do any construction whatsoever. And my wife's family, these guys like build their own homes. I think if you gave enough time, they'd build their own cars. So I love the construction business because I know it's just very detailed and it's nothing but learning to do things the right way. So I love talking to people in the construction industry. How long have you been doing construction?
29 years.
29 years. So what kind of construction do you do?
Basically anything to do with dirt, ground, what goes in the ground, what comes out of the ground, sewer lines, water lines, storm, building pads out of dirt, stone.
Okay. And wires and things like that, is that still in your wheelhouse?
Say that again, please.
To have like wires and fiber optic and spaces for them to go into?
Yeah, that is one of the things I do now.
Now, did you start in that business in construction, or have you done anything else?
I actually started building dredge ponds for sewage. That's how I got started in the business.
Yeah, it's a wonder you left that. Sounds like a great job.
It was a great opportunity, wasn't it?
So, is the smell just as bad as I imagine it
Well,
is?
see, you got to remember, I wasn't around for the sewage part when it was filled.
Okay.
So that was the beauty of it.
So you were not, when they said we need a quality check this, you were like, okay, good luck.
Yeah, I hope that works out for you.
He was the before and not the after.
That's smart,
Gotcha, yeah.
smart. I'd work that into the contract, which I'm sure they did. So you've done this for 29 years.
Yeah.
I can only imagine you've come across some stories that were not in the job description in this business. So
Several.
I can tell you, I always think it's really funny when I talk to people who manage people, and I understand that you've kind of had that relationship with people on the construction site. Any interesting stories about managing people on the construction site?
This one kind of sticks out to me. I had a guy that worked with us he was probably there 4 or 5 years. I ended up making him a foreman, smart guy. Single, had disposable income. And so he decided he liked to drink.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No, there's not. I mean, I like to drink. But one Monday morning he comes in and he finds me, and I'm like, this is weird that he's walking into my office on Monday morning. He's got places to be and he knows where to be. He says, hey, I need to talk to you. I'm like, okay, what's going on? He says, I got a DUI. So immediately my head drops and I'm thinking, you're a foreman, you have a company truck, you just got a DUI, and now our insurance isn't going to cover you. How am I going to get the things I need to get to the job? So he asked me, he's like, am I going to lose my job over this? I said, you know what, Tom, no. I said, I'm going to figure some stuff out. My problem is, how'd you get here this morning? I drove the company truck. I'm like, so you got a DUI, right now that you don't have a license, and, you're driving the company truck. So it kind of clicked. The light bulb went off. I'm like, did you get the DUI in a company truck?
He left that out of the story.
He left that out of the story.
Oh, my God.
His head drops, and he was like, yes. I'm like, oh, man, this is going to be a tough one. I said, I need someone to come and pick you up. You can't work today. I'll give you a call this afternoon. Let me work it out. So I go to my bosses. I go to the CFO of the company. I said, hey, this guy's been here 4 or 5 years. I'd like to work it out with him. They're like, well, JR, he cannot drive a vehicle. I said, I'll work this part out. They said, if you want to keep him, but, this is kind of your deal. So I I work everything out to where I can have another person pick him up in his company truck, bring him to and from work. Here in Ohio, you know that you get a DUI, it's basically you lose your license for a year.
Yeah.
So we do this for a year.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, I mean, it was a pain, but it worked out. The guy gets his license back. He has him back for, I would say, a month and a half. So he's back in the company vehicle. And one Monday morning, he walks into my office. I'm like, hey, what's going on? He says, I got something to tell you. I said, dude, if you tell me you got another damn DUI, I said, just walk the fuck out of my office. The guy throws his company keys on my desk and walks out.
Oh, my gosh.
Like,
Now, was he in the company truck again?
yes.
Oh, that's
Yes, sir.
classic.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I mean, I would have never expected it out of this guy. He was a really good guy. He did a great job.
That's the worst part. You get somebody who's a really good worker and they
Yeah.
just make some dumb mistakes, and
Yeah.
that's horrible. I mean, is it tough to find? I know now, but I don't know historically. Is it tough to find good people to work for the company long term?
Yeah, in that industry, what usually gets to people is the long hours and the cold. Those are the two factors that I've noticed I've always had a problem with.
Yeah, I would imagine in that business, because you guys work 12 months out of the year, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter whether it's 2 degrees outside. You guys are still out there
right
working.
Right.
Yeah, there is a guilty pleasure I have,
Uh-oh.
and it's around the construction business, and I think you already know it's not me doing any part of construction whatsoever. But if you really want to enjoy something that's really funny and inappropriate on Facebook, there is a Facebook group called the Construction Hall of Shame,
Okay.
and it is wildly inappropriate. I love it because, you can't talk about this stuff at work or anything like that, but you go on this Construction Hall of Shame, and I'll tell you, it is hilarious. And I have to let people know, one of the admins of this group has the same last name as me. It is no relation whatsoever. This is not us paying or them paying us to talk about the site. It's just a really funny group. It captures all kinds of humor on the construction site. There's always that, hey, does this look right to you? And you'll see someone destroy a construction job.
Wow.
And they get a lot of that. But one of the things they always kind of make fun of is, and you tell me if this is true or not, but you find a lot of people maybe with some drug issues that want to come and work there? Because that seems to be a theme that runs through on the Construction Hall of Shame.
Okay. So I can give you another story if you want one. I think that's what we're here to do.
That's why we're here.
Okay. So against my better judgment, I gave an individual a chance. He told me he was a dozer operator. A couple guys were like, man, I really don't want to work with this guy. I said, well, give him a shot. I said, I had him on a dozer for about an hour. He didn't do that bad. So try him out. We're doing a project at a local university, and they are building new dormitories. And at the bottom of the dormitories, there's these granite blocks or decorative pads. And, he's grading around them, and I show up on site, and I look, and I'm like, is that panel cracked? I'm talking to one of my foremen. He's like, no, I don't think so. So the dozer operator, he's going down, working from right to left, grading in front of these panels, and I looked at the next panel, and I'm like, dude, that panel's cracked. And so is the one beside it. So me and the foreman walk up, and he's still working, and the one beside that's cracked. Now we have, and when I say panels, I mean, they're not like tiles that you would put in your bathroom or on your floor. These are probably 3 foot by 3 foot, 4 foot by 4 foot, several $100s a piece.
Yeah.
This guy's cracked 5 of them.
Oh.
So anytime you have any type of accident on the job, you have to go get a drug test. So I call my boss up, and I'm like, hey, meet me down at the drug testing place. I need to have somebody with me to administer, just to watch this test go on. He's like, okay, I'll meet you down there. So I'm signing this guy in. I'm paying for the drug test. I turn around, and this guy's gone. And I looked at the lady. I'm like, did you see where the guy that walked in with me went? She's like, he went out the door. So the next thing I know, my boss walks through the door and he says, JR, is that guy outside? I said, I just asked where he went. So all of a sudden, this guy's wife shows up and he's drinking something and he comes back up and now he's ready to take the drug test. He passes the drug test, so I can't fire him. So I'm like, what do I do with this guy? I grabbed my foreman the next day and I'm sitting down talking to him and I said, anything that is difficult, hard, has to do with anything that's going to make you exhausted, he does from now on. 3 days later, he quit.
Yeah, just keep him away from the expensive stuff.
Yeah.
I think the other thing. Yeah, the drug testing stuff at work is interesting. I have a long history of working in call centers, and early in my career, I worked at a company, and we did a lot of things over the phone. And one time we had a customer that was wanting to talk to a manager, and then that manager wanted to talk to another manager. And come to find out, they get a hold of this manager and they say, listen, I think you guys might be having a medical emergency with one of your employees. And we said, well, what's happening? And this is back when the technology was such that, the place I worked didn't record all their calls. That was kind of an expensive thing. But he said, I was talking to this guy and he sounded absolutely fine. And then he would just say something that made no sense. So we're scrambling to go to this recording system and find out what this agent was saying. And it was the most bizarre thing. He answers the phone call and he starts talking to the customer just as clear as can be. And then he said something like, so were you on the dating game? And it had absolutely nothing to do with what the customer's calling about. And the customer said, wait a minute, are you talking to me? And he's like, yeah. And the guy goes, no, why does my name look familiar? And he was like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't get your name. I mean, it was the most bizarre thing. And then he would answer a question about the person's account, the customer's account, just fine. And then he would be right on like, hey, have you ever eaten a wombat? I mean, it was the weirdest situation. And so we ended up, finding out where this person was. They were somewhere in Texas. And we got a hold of the manager. And they called me later and told me like, yeah, this guy... he had some pain medication for surgery, and he decided, I don't have time to take them for the next 2 days. I'll take them all at once. Perfect. So he was out of it. And luckily, in that scenario, it wasn't this person had a problem with it. It was more of a short-term abuse of somebody trying to do the right thing. But yeah, I can imagine in the construction world, the drug problems have to be a little rough. I mean, you've got a lot of people around some heavy equipment. Mm-hmm. And I always wonder when I see, situations out there where, they hit a water main. I often wonder, was that just a bad map or was somebody starting the weekend early?
I can't answer that question. I mean, I am a repeat offender on hitting water lines. And it seems like it happens on Friday about 3:30. But yeah, it's pretty common.
That's funny. Oh, wow. Well, again, if you get a chance, check out that Facebook group, Construction Hall of Shame. But you better have a broad sense of humor.
I'm probably in it.
There's a good possibility, and it's definitely not safe for work. But I will tell you, it is very funny. And they'll tell you up front, if you get a problem with this site, just don't go to it because we're not stopping. And they're really funny. I don't know, Chris, have you ever seen them?
No, I've not.
Oh, you'll have to check them out. They're pretty funny. JR, you will absolutely think it's hilarious. Or you'll just be like, yeah, this just reminds me of working. Yeah, and maybe you won't like it. I don't know. So one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, JR, was I noticed that there are some occupations out there where there is just this natural sense of camaraderie. And the thing I love about, we had somebody on here who was from the military, and you have a job to do, but you are also part of a team. And I think there's a camaraderie that gets built up there. And anytime you start seeing jobs with high levels of camaraderie, you usually get some pretty good prank stories. So, well, and here's what I did a little research. This might spawn some thoughts on your side. But from constructaquote.com blog, this is just a few of the top 10 pranks found on the construction site. Asking someone to jumpstart a chainsaw. So you tell a younger, less experienced crew member to run the chainsaw blade against a stretch of concrete to jumpstart it. And if you don't believe me, go on YouTube and look up jumpstart a chainsaw. There's plenty of videos out there.
Believe you, I've done it.
Did you jumpstart it okay?
No, I've had guys try and do it. I've
Okay.
told them, hey, go. We call them partner saws. It's a fiber material blade used for cutting ductile iron water line. But yeah, it's pretty much how
have
you
them
described it.
Jumpstart that. Very good.
Yeah, and after about 30 seconds, everybody starts laughing, and the guy is a little bit pissed.
Again, building that camaraderie.
Right.
Another one from this website was using an epoxy to fix a coin or paper money to the floor of a highly populated work site. So I imagine if you put some epoxy down and pasted a $5 bill on the concrete, you could get some pretty fun times watching people pick that up.
That's a good one. I haven't seen that one yet.
Well, let me know how it goes next
Yeah,
week.
right. I'll tell you on Monday.
Another one is sending new workers to the store for supplies. On the list, a left-handed hammer, blue steam, sky hooks, the spirit level bubbles, and then skirting board ladders. I think that would be pretty funny. You guys, yeah.
No,
See, I didn't think that was funny because if I was on that construction site, I would have had that list. I would have been at Home Depot, and I would have been like, listen, guys, it's important that I get the left-handed hammer.
Okay, I got a good one for you. And this is, you're not in the construction business. So if I tell someone to go get a bull's dick and a pancake, what do they do?
Bull's dick and a pancake.
Yes, sir.
They go to IHOP, I guess.
So when you are installing concrete pipe, it has a hole in the center. So
Okay.
you take the bull's dick, you stick it through the hole.
Okay.
You take the pancake, you slide it through the hole of the pipe, the actual where water would flow.
Okay.
And the pancake clamps onto the bull's dick, and that's how you pick it up.
Now-
So when you tell someone to go get the bull's dick and pancake, they tell you, go fuck yourself.
Right, 'cause they think you're messing with them.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And then you get mad because you really want to get this pipe in the ground, so you go get the bull's dick and the pancake yourself, and you throw it at them.
Yeah. Yeah. I see. Again, doesn't always pay to be the new guy on any construction site because that would be me. Like, JR's messing with you again.
Well, that's because they just sent you to Home Depot for the,
That's true. The
for
sky
the
hooks.
left-handed hammer. So
That's
Yeah.
true. Yeah. There were a few of these that I thought were also really funny, and I would fall for them, but I would end up getting somebody hurt. Well, for people in the plumbing and heating business, hand the newbie a bucket, ask them to get a steam sample.
Yeah.
And if you are in the electrician world out there, you can do the same thing. Ask them to catch the sparks so we can get a sample of that. And I think there was one in here that is just brilliant because of its simplicity. And that is you nail a toolbox into concrete, put all the tools back in the toolbox, and then ask the new guy to bring it right away. So I would probably do that thinking it's funny, and someone would throw their back out, and then I'd be in all
Nice
kinds
comp
of
claim.
trouble. Exactly. So any pranks besides the...
I need you to tune the hook on the excavator.
Oh,
So
those need tuned.
Those need no tuning at all. They pretty much free spin themselves, but you can get 15, 20 minutes of laughter out of it. I can't really think of all the stupid things that we've done on site, but
I'm
that's
sure
one of 'em.
there's plenty of them. Now, the other interesting thing is when you're working in the construction business, sometimes it's probably nice, sometimes it's not, but you're always working with a group of people. Like you've got a team there, and they might not even be part of your construction crew, but you have to work with developers. You have to work with different groups that are doing the surveying of the land or the property owners, or like you end up running into any conflicts with any of these groups, even outside of your own construction crew.
Oh, always. There's there's always somebody whose work's more important than you, and they have to do this now, and they need this, and they need you to move. Or they're just, always trying to prove you wrong. It doesn't, in our business, you don't get along with everybody.
I'm not so sure there's any business where they get along with everybody. I don't know where else you've worked, JR, but I can tell you I haven't worked there yet.
Oh, okay, I got you. See, so our industries are kind of the same.
So let me ask you, My dad was in construction, residential, roofing, siding, windows. And he always said when the painters came, they were always just a little weird because they're sniffing, paint fumes all day. And he could work with anybody, but the painters always seemed to be the ones that were just a little touched sometime. Is there, now because you're doing a lot of excavation work, you're probably not working with painters, but is there another subgroup of contractors that for whatever reason, when that particular type of group comes, you're just like shaking your head like, oh, here we go?
Yeah, what stands out to me kind of is guys that hang steel. They are a lot different. They take a risk that I'm not afraid of heights, but you see a guy 35 feet up in the air standing on a steel beam.
Right.
That's a special kind of breed right there.
Yeah.
Right.
And once again, they think that they take precedence over everybody for the simple fact that without them, this building doesn't get built. It won't have a frame.
Do you remind them without a foundation?
I remind them that other than their crane, my equipment is bigger than yours. So we had a job and we were helping build this building. They were there and the steel guys decided we are going to park wherever we want. So several times, hey, can you guys move your vehicles? Can you guys move your vehicles? About the third day, I'm like, you know what? I'm tired of this shit. I said, take that loader with that set of forks and just move their trucks and move them into that field. So my loader operator, he picks truck up, he puts it in the field. He goes back and he gets the second one. These steel guys jump off of this building and they're like, what in the hell are you doing? I said, look, I've asked you several times nicely to move. You guys keep doing it. Therefore, your truck is now stuck in that mud.
See, again, this is where I would try something really clever like that, and the car would fall off. It would roll over, catch fire, catch the entire site on fire. I would burn down a neighborhood. That's just how my luck goes.
Yeah, I mean, you do asshole stuff sometimes.
Now, you told me that there was one time you guys were doing something around a popular mall around here, and you ran into some conflict.
This is kind of a long story. I got a call from a guy that I've known for a lot of years, and he says, hey, we got this job. Can you look at it and bid it? And I point blank told him, I said, hey, your engineering firm doesn't like our company, so why are you asking me to bid this? Because everybody else said no. I said, okay, that makes sense.
It's a hell of a sales job
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we go and we're doing this project, and the guy that is their principal engineer, at every turn, he has some sort of complaint about the way we're doing things. One of his complaints was we were trucking in dirt from another site to help with this slope, and it started to rain. So versus putting this dirt back on trucks and trucking it out and spending more money to truck it back in, I decided put it on the slope, seal it off, compact it down. When we can get back to work, we'll dig it out, we'll place it back in lifts like we're supposed to.
Yep.
They have an inspector there on site that watches our work, does our soils testing, our compaction test, and I brought this idea up to her, and she's like, yeah, that's fine. The next morning, I get a phone call. Hey, we need to meet. I said, okay. So I go into this meeting. Well, there's the guy that asked me to bid the job. There's the principal engineer. There's the owner, representative of the local mall, and the inspector. And to my surprise, my boss was there. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing here? I was asked to join because we got a huge problem. I said, okay, what's the problem? You got to remember this is 35-year-old JR who really does not care. And now I'm 52 and I kind of have the same attitude.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm glad to see you've learned so much, yeah. But please go on.
So they explained to me what I did. And I'm like, this is what we talked about. Well, yeah, it is what we talked about, but you can't just do that. You've got to take it out and you've got to compact it in lifts. And I'm like, we said that we were going to dig it back out and put it back in lifts and compact it. Well, we don't like the way that you're compacting. I'm like, okay. I have not had one single test fail. So what part don't you like? We want you to use a different piece of equipment. So this is a big slope. At the bottom of the slope is a protected wetlands. I'm like, okay, if I use your method of, and I don't know how to explain this, it's like a drum. It's got big spikes on it, and basically once it rolls across the ground, it compacts it.
Okay.
I said, if I use that, I've got to have a cable on it to pull it back and forth. I said, here's the other problem. It's filled with liquid. They're like, yeah. I said, okay, do you know what the liquid is? This principal engineer, I don't know where he got his damn degree from, but I would hate for anybody's kid to go to that school. He says, yes, it's filled with water. I said, no, dumbass, it's filled with oil.
Oh, yeah, nice.
I said,
That'll
so
help with the wetlands.
if the cable breaks, it goes into the wetlands, the oil spills.
Now there's a
EPA's
problem.
got something to say about this. Well, that's what you're going to use. So I made him sign a form saying that if it broke, if the wetlands got, damaged, they would pay for all the damage. So he signs it, and I'm like, God, you are stupid. There's no way I would sign that, but cool. So we do it, and I tell my guys, I said, when that cable breaks, don't do anything. Don't try and get the thing out. Don't try and pull the drum
You're
out.
just going to make matters worse.
Yeah,
right.
don't do anything. I said, call me. That is the only thing I need you to do is call me. So about 2 hours in, I get a call from my foreman. I said, cable break? He says, yep. I said, don't do anything. He says, dude, I got a sandwich right now. I'm sitting here. So I go to my boss and I said, hey, that cable broke and that drum is in the wetlands. I said, I need $1,500 to go buy another cable long enough to pull it out. And my boss kind of looks at me and he says, I do believe you said that was going to happen. I said, I do believe that you agreed with the dumbass engineer. And once again, this is not me ad-libbing. This is pretty much how the conversation went. So I go buy a cable. I pull it out. I go to the engineer. I said, hey, you guys may have to deal with this wetlands deal if anybody saw it. He's pissed because I was right. And I got to finish this job. So we finished the job. I get a call from the owner's representative, and he says, hey, JR, we have another slope slip. I was wanting to know if you guys would be interested in fixing it. I said, no. He says, this principal engineer is no longer involved. We fired him.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so that works out for me. So we did the second one, which went a lot better. No hassles.
Yeah, that's interesting. I will tell you this. Whenever I start to see people who kind of know what's happening in their jobs, I like to step back and let them do their jobs. I have learned throughout my career that I may think I know certain things, but if I get somebody in who's done that job before, I will take a back seat immediately because I will absolutely screw that thing up and think that I know what I'm doing. So I'm very anxious to get as much detail and as much expertise as I can around what I'm doing. And it's just amazing. I have met more people in my career who have this gift of speaking with such certainty when they don't know what they're talking about. And I think it is, I'm always amazed when I see it. And sometimes I just watch it like somebody who is just performing this performance art that I've never seen before. And they're just so fantastic. And they're just full of crap, but you just can't stop watching them. And it's just amazing to me that people don't take heed of people who've done the job before and know what they're doing.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's fantastic to watch, but it costs twice as much to fix. Always remember that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
That kind of leads me to a question. Whenever possible, right, you should consult the professionals, but there are people that want to just do things on their own. Maybe back in your residential construction days, it sounds like your current company's more commercial, but
Yeah.
back in your residential days, was there ever a time that somebody was trying to do something on their own and just got in way over their head or just couldn't quite get it done, so they had to call in the professional?
We had a lady, she was a very nice lady, lived out on a farm, and she wanted a pond dug. So Her and her husband rented an excavator and a bulldozer. Problem was, neither one of them had ever ran one. So I get a call once again from one of my bosses and says, hey, I need you to go to this address. Need you to check this out. So I go to the address. I knock on the door, and the lady comes out, and she says, so-and-so sent you? I said, yes, ma'am. I said, what am I supposed to be looking at? Over here. So she walks me probably an eighth of a mile through the woods, and I see an excavator in a hole. I'm like, okay, what exactly am I here to do? Well, we rented it. We need it out.
You're playing cleanup.
I said, okay, how much are you going to charge me to get it out? I said, honestly, I said, if you give me 5 minutes, I said, I'll have it out. I run back to my truck. I get the keys. Well, I get the excavator out, no problem. And I'm looking, and there's glass everywhere. They had busted the windows out of this thing somehow. I still, to this day, I've done this for 29 years. I've never figured out how they busted the windows out. So she hires us to finish digging the pond. The rental company comes to pick up the excavator and the dozer that they've rented, and the guy picking it up was pretty pissed off at me. I looked at him. I said, I had nothing to do with that.
Yeah, how did they break the window?
I don't know. I don't know if when they were curling the bucket up, they curled it up with a big rock in it.
Yeah.
I'd
like to think they locked the keys in it.
You know what, Scott? I never thought of that.
Yeah, that would make a better story for sure.
Yeah,
that's funny.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just people using equipment they're not familiar with.
Yeah.
And people talk about the construction business, and I've mentioned it before. I am always amazed at people who are into that kind of thing, and especially if they do it for a living, because there is a certain amount of expertise you get that you only get through that experience. And if you don't do shit right, you get hurt. I mean, it's not like, if my job, I do something wrong, everybody just kind of looks and goes, let's not do that again. We learn. Sometimes that's a good thing. It just goes to show it's so important. And people talk about the construction business or anything where you have this equipment. That stuff is dangerous. It does make a lot of sense to hire professionals who know what they're doing. And you got to be ready to work when you go into those kinds of jobs.
So the motto "safety third" is not the best thing to practice.
Well, I mean, it's always profit first, right?
Yeah.
So safety's always second.
There you go. So as far as dealing with employees again, I wanted to make sure if you've, again, I've been in call center type world, and I know that we have a relatively high turnover because it's a entry level jobs a lot of times, and it's a lot to learn, and people think they want to do it, and sometimes it's not a good fit for them. What's the turnover like in the construction business?
So it's probably like you guys in the call center. There's only a certain amount of people that do what you do. In the construction business, you think of all these companies and how big they are and how many people they have and how many states that they cover. But there's one factor that people don't look at is everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
Because you are kind of a specialized little niche market of what you know. So I know guys that work at several different companies, and your name travels around, be it a good name or a bad name. So as far as the turnover goes, you really don't hire the guys that people speak bad of because you know how it's going to end, because it's ended that way the last 4 or 5 places this person's worked. Where our biggest turnover is right now is guys that are just now getting into the business and don't want to work. I don't want to carry that ladder. I don't want to shovel. So I would say that our turnover is probably somewhere around 35% of the people.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, okay. Yeah, I know. I read a stat and doing some research on construction, and you can just back me up with your informal knowledge of people you work with, but this blew my mind.
Okay.
They said the average construction worker in the United States today, the average construction worker is 45 years old.
Yeah.
Does that drive?
The average age of my 5-person crew right now is 51.
Wow.
So we're going to be hurting in about 15 years.
Yeah.
Well, see, and that's where you think we're going to be hurting in the building industry. I look at it as I am a union construction worker. I need people to take my place to start putting into that union. So,
yeah, absolutely. I'm sure that can have an impact of the future there. I know my son, who produces this show with his company, Lounging Ogre Productions.
I love it.
Yeah, and it's fitting. And I'll tell you, I just think he went to school. There was a fork in the road when he was done with high school. And it was learn a trade, go to college. And it was really a decision for him. And at the time, he ended up getting some interest from an art school locally, and he's always been into that. So he decided to go to school for cinematography. And that's just good. He likes his car. We figured he might be able to live in it. So he finishes his degree there. Now, the good news is he's into everything. He's into all kinds of production, and he'll do podcasts and videos and things like that. I think if I was in a time machine and could go backwards, I think I would have put him towards a skilled trade, construction, plumbing, something else, because I think that's where the money's going to be. And if you don't like your boss in that business, it's on you. You've got some options.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and a lot of guys, when they hit like 40 years old, they get tired of working for somebody else and start their own company. But once again, if you don't go the start your own company route, your name does get around, and it can go one of two ways. It could be good or bad.
Sure.
And I would imagine it's the good guys then that do start their own company because they've built up, their name means something, so they're able to get the customers. They're able to do the job that they need to do.
Correct, 100%. I know 3 guys right now that have started their companies, and all 3 of them have told me the same thing. Man, it cost me almost $1 million to start this company.
Sure, but it sounds like there's plenty of business out there, and you have to go get it, and it helps if people know your name. So
agreed.
That's the good part of it. But I imagine if you try and start your own business and you're either not well known or known for the wrong reasons, you might have an uphill battle.
Yeah. There's, and even like it's not just trying to find the business, because you could always go into public works where you have to bid jobs with the city of Columbus or somebody like that, and they tell you no. No, you cannot bid this because you suck.
Yeah, that would be a tough pill to swallow, wouldn't it?
A little bit.
When a city bureaucracy says, "Oh no, you're horrible." Yeah, that's got to be rough. All right, so off the top of your head, easiest job you ever had
in the construction business?
Yeah,
easiest job I've ever had.
Or when you get it, you're like, "Oh, piece of cake."
Yeah, when I find that job, I will let you know.
All right, hardest.
Managing like 30, 40 guys a day. That was absolutely the hardest, because you can't make everybody's life easy. You can't make everybody happy.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's things that need to be done, and there's no way you're going to make them not need to be done. I mean,
right.
Yeah, somebody's got to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You've got to step up. And there's a reason they call them work boots.
I'm sure you've said that before, the way that rolled off the tongue.
Once or twice.
All right. Well, JR, thank you very much for talking to us about the construction business. I've learned a lot. So, Chris, what do you think we've learned today?
Yeah, I would say, everybody makes mistakes. Just don't do it in the work truck twice.
Twice?
Yeah. My grandma used to tell me that. Yeah. I learned that when JR says to move your trucks, it's probably a good idea to just move them. Just get them out of the way.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that about wraps it up for this episode. For Chris Kiernan and JR, this is Scott McLaughlin saying, we'll see you at work.
Thank you for listening to the Not in the Job Description podcast. If you have a story you'd like to share, or if you'd like to be a guest on our podcast, please let us know by sending us an email with a brief description of your story to stories@notinthejob.com.